Another new study shows that extreme temperatures are linked to a rise in hate speech, discrimination, and aggression on Twitter. Is it real, or are people just cranky? And how can this help you learn English in just 15 minutes? Find out right now on English News Worth Talking About. Hey, I'm Dennis Wilborn, the former sailor turned entrepreneur and English coach. Welcome back to the second episode of English News Worth Talking About on All About English. This is the show where I break down some of the most popular news articles chosen by my clients and students to help you reach your English learning goals faster. Be sure to stick around to the end and get my secret to learning new vocabulary fast. Today's news. Today is October 7th, 2022, and our news article comes once again from engu.com, a website that introduces simple news articles for English learners every single day. Today, we are talking a bit about technology and climate change. Let's see what that's all about. The article headline: Extreme temperatures linked to a rise in hate speech, or excuse me, hate tweets. Hate tweets. What the heck are hate tweets? Actually, that was one of the first things that was asked to me this morning. What's a hate tweet? Well, let's get into it. The article apparently doesn't say, but let's go over the vocabulary. Extreme. You might hear this a lot. We hear extreme sports oftentimes, but extreme merely means reaching a high or the highest amount or degree. Now, this doesn't just mean hot or high elevation. It also means high as in like it could be depth as well. So I mean, we could be talking about extreme hot, extreme cold, extremely high. Well, extremely is a adjective, but is another adjective. Excuse me, adverb. Listen to me. My English is horrible this morning. All right. Extreme is merely, it's the most or the highest on both ends of a spectrum. So, um, yeah, for example, polar bears can live in extreme cold. Snakes, on the other hand, tend to live in Washington, D.C. I mean, extreme hot. Link. All right. Everybody knows what a link is. A link is the little thing you click on in an article. That is a link. What does that mean? It means to make a connection between two or more people, things, ideas, etc. So a link is not just the hyperlink that we see in the internet. A link is also when two or more things are connected. Okay. In this case, in this article, two ideas or two things are being connected. New evidence, as this sentence says, new evidence has suggested that air pollution may be linked to heart attacks. I wonder what else might be linked to heart attacks. All the country's major cities are linked by the highway system. All right. Well, so basically, links are putting two things and connecting them together. Can you think of a way to use link in a sentence? Huh. Let's think about it. Window. Now, this is not just a piece of glass in a wall. A window is, in this case, an ideal time, an opportunity, or a situation for something. Okay. Um, in NASA, you might hear people talking about a launch window. That means the ideal time that they can launch a rocket. Maybe not NASA these days because they kind of suck at launching rockets, but SpaceX is pretty good at it. Haven't seen them delay launches recently. Now, if the tires, according to this sentence here, if the tires aren't in the correct temperature window, they won't have much grip. There you go. If you're a race car junkie, that's something to remember. So, window is an ideal time, opportunity, or situation. In this article, it will be a window of temperatures that are ideal. All right, that's a spoiler alert. Aggressive. I'm aggressive. Aggressive means ready or likely to behave in an angry or violent way, right? Most people consider pit bulls to be aggressive dogs. I don't know why. I mean, but they can be pretty aggressive. They have this really strong, but they're not. They're like sweet little dogs. All right, they're not that little, but okay. Aggressive, to behave in an angry or violent way. Just remember that as we're reading through this article. Aggressive. Discriminatory. Discriminatory. That's a mouthful. Discriminatory. Treating people worse than others based on their race, religion, sex, etc., etc. It's basically if you treat someone poorly because you feel like they're lower than you are, that's what the discriminatory definition is. Okay, this is an adjective. Um, now, it comes from the word discriminate. Discriminate. Now, discriminate does not necessarily mean to treat people worse than others. Discriminate means to show a difference between two things in your opinion. It means basically to choose between things. Um, to be a discriminating person doesn't necessarily mean that you um, don't like people or anything. I mean, you could be discriminatory in the coffee that you drink. I like mine black. Other people might like theirs blonde or with milk and cream or sugar or all kinds of things. Soy milk, maybe. Ugh. So to discriminate is not necessarily a bad thing, but discriminatory in this sense um, is describing things where people are treated worse based on their race, religion, sex, etc. So their sample sentence: offensive and discriminatory language won't be tolerated at this school. Oh no, shame, shame, shame. Will not tolerate that. And finally, speaking of tolerate, the word take. Take. It doesn't just mean to grab something and take it away. Okay. Take means to tolerate or endure. Okay. Um, so this discriminatory and offensive language won't be tolerated. You could also say it won't be taken at this school. All right. Most people wouldn't say that in that context, but many people might say, I don't think I can take living with my parents for much longer. What a horrible thing to say. What a horrible thing to say. But hey, I was young. I've been there before. Uh, anyway, that reminds me. There's a song in the 80s, I think. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. Anyway, not gonna get into it. Don't ask me where it comes from, other than the 80s. You'll have to look that one up on yourself. We're not gonna take it anymore. All right, here's the article. Extreme temperatures linked to rise in hate tweets. Now, I have to say, when when my student first came to me with this one, I had to chuckle to myself because I thought, wow, most of my students come from a pretty hot place, a place where the temperatures are pretty extreme. But the temperatures in this article, yeah, not. I mean, we'll get into it. So, essentially, let me give you the breakdown. We know that extreme temperatures can make us uncomfortable. Yeah. Oh, man, it's so hot in here and I'm so uncomfortable. But now some scientists have figured out that being uncomfortable could lead you to being angry. No, I'm sorry. No, they found that it linked to an increase in online hate speech. Now, interesting. How does that work? The scientists at the Potsdam Institute, that's a German institute for climate impact research. Now, why are climate impact researchers studying Twitter and hate speech? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is there an agenda going on here? I don't know. But what they found was that when there were temperatures outside of a feel good window, there's that vocabulary word, window, a feel good window. That means the window of temperatures where people feel good. Um, Outside that, people are more aggressive. They tend to be more angry and violent, according to this. Remember the definition of aggressive: angry and violent. Okay, so how did they figure this out? How did they do this massive study? Did they go and research and investigate and talk to people? No, no, that's not what they did. They looked at 4 billion tweets. Where were the tweets written? In the United States between 2014 and 2020. Okay. They only used the location information on the tweets so that they could compare the local weather data with the number of quote hate tweets. Now, notice how they have to use this term here, hate tweets, because hate tweets is not a real thing. Um, just like hate speech is not a real thing. I don't mean it's not a real thing. There are laws against hate speech, but the problem is it's hard to define. How do you define hate speech? Hate speech is basically whatever is offensive to one person, uh, calling it hateful. If you don't believe me, go look up the rules and go look up hate speech online. You'll find all kinds of things that talk about hate speech, and there's lots of examples and definitions, but none of them is objective. It's all subjective. It's all based on people's feelings, just like hate. So they looked at all of these tweets and they figured out that when the weather was too hot or too cold, it was it caused an increase of hate. Now, how did they figure this out? They used a computer program, meaning they had an algorithm, and they found 75 million tweets that included hate speech. Now, how do they define hate speech? If you want to find out, they use the definition from the United Nations, okay, which includes most types of aggressive and discriminatory language. 2 vocabulary words in the same sentence. Oh my gosh, aggressive and discriminatory language. So go look up the United Nations definition of hate speech, and then tell me if that's anything more than just mean things that are being said to other people. Okay. What they found was that anywhere between 12 degrees and 21 degrees Celsius, don't ask me to do that in Fahrenheit, you'll have to do that on your own. Anywhere between those temperatures, that's the window, then there were more hate tweets. Okay, but on cold days, really cold days, they had more hate tweets, 12.5% more hate tweets. And when it was really hot, then the temperatures drove people so angry that they increased their hate by 22%. Yes, let your hatred. I'm sorry, I'm channeling my inner Darth Vader or Emperor or whatever Star Wars character you'd like me to say. Um, so what they found was even when they had air conditioning, they still saw a rise in hate tweets when the temperatures got extremely hot. Then there's just limits. There's limits to what people can take. That's what this guy says. There is a limit to what people can take, he said. Well, I guess it's interesting because most of us have known just kind of intuitively, we didn't need to do a scientific study to figure out that when you get hot or cold, you get cranky. Same thing happens when you get hungry. Okay. Now, does that mean that you're actually more violent or more discriminatory? Probably not. But that's that's what it looks like to me. That's what they're trying to say here. There is a link between higher and lower temperatures and more hate tweets. Now, what I think this really means is, based on the United Nations definition, they had to go to the United Nations definition to define hate speech. And they also had to go to the United States to get these 4 billion tweets. Now, why did they have to go to the United States? Because the United States does not have any hate speech laws on the books, because the definition of hate speech cannot be made. You can't define it. If you can't define it, then what's the point, right? So 4 billion tweets written in the US. Why are Germans worried about the US? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but I have the feeling it has to do with the fact that Americans still have free speech, whereas in Germany, they don't. They have hate speech laws. They have them in Europe all over the place. So, uh, and that basically is all there is to that. Now, how does climate change fit into all of this? Well, as you read to the end of the article, she said that there may be a limit too for people affected by hate tweets. Yeah, there must be a limit. But also, she said the study showed that protecting the planet from climate change was very important for people's mental health. Climate change is driving people insane. There you have it from one of Germany's top scientists. Climate change is driving people insane. Okay. Okay, that's all I have on the news for today. Let's move on. How is it that you can improve your vocabulary? Look, memorizing vocabulary doesn't really work. It just doesn't. You may be able to remember the words, but they're never handy when you need to remember them in a conversation. So, engaging with new vocabulary in your reading, or even when you're listening to a podcast or watching a drama on Netflix, it will help you to drive the information home into your mind. Speaking it out loud will make it even more accessible to your brain when having conversations. So, what do we do? Step one, first, when you find new words or phrases, or even words that you know, but you haven't worked into your spoken vocabulary yet, circle the words, highlight the words, or mark them somehow. Put little dots around them, draw flowers. I don't know. Write it down in your book. That's the first thing. Second step, take the time, look up the word or the phrase, and then write it down in your notebook somewhere that you keep for your language. Get a little note, a language notebook, write it down, but write it in the sentence or in the context. Just write down the whole sentence. Basically, you're going to rewrite the sentence so that you are familiar with the context, and if you need to, write down the definition. Write it in English, write it in your own language, whatever you need to do to remember that. And finally, you're going to create your own sentence with the word or phrase. Okay, there's tools online such as Ludwig or Sentence Stack, and you can look those up. And those will help you to see if you're using the sentence in the right way or using the words in the right way. Now, be sure to give your mouth plenty of practice by speaking the sentences out loud a few times. This will help you solidify your learning. Now, use it or lose it. So if you follow the steps that I just told you, it will help you remember your new vocabulary. But to really solidify it in your mind, to get it up in there and to make it part of your vernacular, you need to start using it. Write your own sentences. Writing them down is a great start, but try to use it in conversation as soon as possible. Look, I've heard of people just trying to remember and trying to use one new sentence a day or use a new word or expression a day. Some people, some really inspiring people, they'll make a list of all the new words that they learned of the day. And then throughout the day, they'll tick them off as they use them in the day. It's really, like I said, it's really inspiring. What did we learn today? Number one, scientists have learned that extreme temperatures make people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people get annoyed. Number two, German researchers are only able to find hate speech in America. Apparently, extreme temperatures only affect Americans, or maybe it's the only place in the world without hate speech laws so that they can conduct their study. And finally, number three, as always, everything is blamed on climate change, from typhoons and hurricanes to people's mean tweets. They're not hate tweets, they're just mean words. And that is all the time that we have for today. As always, remember, you can read the news, but you don't have to believe it. Be sure to like this program, share it with a friend, and subscribe. If you would like to share your opinions, leave a comment down below. And if you would like to join the conversation yourself, check out my page on Amazing Talker. The link is in the description, and you might see me opine about an article that you chose on this channel too. I also offer group sessions. So if you get all your friends together, well, not all of them, 2 or 3 friends together, we can have a group conversation and a chance to practice speaking in real life setting. Now, always remember, learning is meant to be an adventure, and that is what it's all about.